following week, we will start our service with images from those gatherings and pouring all of our water together, and a special ritual that we're going to do here at Beacon with your leadership team. So we're really excited about that. Chris, you've been a UU for a little bit now. Do you have any stories about water communion or water ceremony?
Yes, I have participated in a water communion or two in my time, and I've been able to experience that as a member and also for some years as a religious educator. So to be on both sides of that experience. And I find there are just so many sort of layers and levels of that ritual. It starts with just where is that water from? What is it representative of? Which can be interesting and exciting to hear where someone has been and man, I want to go there too, or I don't think I'll ever get to go there. But then you can kind of dig down to see where, who are they with? What friends and family was that experience together? Who they were with together. And then to hear more about what the feelings and the thoughts and the values of that experience. And, I may not be able to go to that physical body of water that they were at. We can identify with that shared experience of being with friends and family or having some significant life experience. And I think of my own water sharing, and I think going back to September of 2013, um, uh, well, I often didn't actually bring the water. I had to use representative water. So I used water that was representative of the doctor's office when we found out my wife was pregnant with our first son. So it was just great to share, again, a significant life event. And it's just so many ways that this coming together of the individual waters into a community of water is so powerful that I really enjoy. And that's always, every place has been like that.
I remember my very first water communion in upstate New York. I didn't have any, background in Unitarian Universalism to know what this ceremony was going to be. And so we were invited to each bring water, and it was a very large congregation. So I was kind of toward the back of the line as the ceremony started, and I couldn't see what was happening at the front. And in my mind, I thought we were going to have to drink this, communion. Usually you consume something. So I thought we were going to have to drink the water that everybody, I saw people around me with clearly pond water or something. There were things floating, and I was just like,
bottoms up,
wow,
Robin.
Okay, I can do this. I believe in Unitarian Universalism. I love this community. And so I got, obviously, long story short, I got 3 back in line and then could see that no one was actually consuming the water. But that's how far I was willing to go for Unitarian Universalism. Giardia. Yep.
We were glad you did.
So, beloved, we say welcome whoever you are at whatever level of risk you're willing to take for this faith. Whether you're a brand new, just tuning in this Sunday, or whether you have been since before your birth from generations of Unitarians or Universalists or Unitarian Universalists. We're so glad you're here with us. And with that, I think it's time to probably begin with some song. What do you think, Misa?
Great. So I love what Chris just said about it being a community of water. And so true. It's like we're a community because we make it our mission to accept people as they are when they come. And so our first song is going to be Come, Come, Whoever You Are, which I know is a favorite of some people already. These words were adapted by Rumi, and you can actually find the sheet music on our website on the music page. So this song is Come, Come, Whoever You Are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. So I hope that you will feel like you can just sing out from your homes as we do this together. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. more time. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come, come, yet again, come, yet again, come. So we'll just all take a community collective breath right now and have our chalice lighting.
Morning. We are the Paul Baez family. This morning we light our home chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, with these words. We light this chalice for the light of truth and reality, the warmth of love and compassion, and the fire and commitment and promise. We light this symbol of our faith as we gather together.
Good morning, Jermaine. My friend Shanti is back in town.
Oh, good morning, Shanti. So good to have you here.
Just let me get her. She's still in the tub. Hang on one second.
Oh, okay.
Shanti, call for you.
Good morning, Shanti. It's so good to have you.
Hello, Jermaine. So excited to be with you again.
I am so happy to have you here. We have a pretty big weekend coming up. It's called...
Wait, I know what it's called. It's called Labor Day. But I can tell you it's very confusing because where I come from originally, way over there across the world in India, Labor Day is celebrated on May 1st. What's with this first Monday in September? I do not get it.
Well, we are in the United States and Americans like to do things their own way. And what you're talking about is International Workers' Day, which is celebrated on May the 1st in countries like India and Ghana and all over the Caribbean. But here in the United States, it's the first Monday in September.
September. What's with September?
Well,
can you tell me a little more about it?
Yeah. To recognize the American labor movement, our leaders set aside the first Monday of September as United States Labor Day. Before workers rose up and fought for better working conditions, people had to work very long hours and sometimes dangerous situations to build and keep our railroads, mines, farms, and factories producing things for the global market. Very often, the workers weren't even treated very well by the companies they worked for. And so, the workers fought back and demanded better from those industries.
I wonder what our young people think about work. And I especially wonder what they think about how much their parents work. You know, because I see them and I hear them whining a lot when their parents ask them for help around the house. Shall we ask them what they think about their parents?
Yeah, I think my parents put in a lot of effort for me, and I feel very grateful and very loved and appreciated. My parents spend so much time thinking about me, caring about me, doing so much work for me, and we all take these things, or well, at least I take these things for granted. I don't give a second thought about food. I don't worry about the laundry.
So I know even though my mom telecommutes, she actually works really hard most of the time just to be prepared for her meetings. Like the next morning she stays up until 11 or 12 at night, and she normally likes to go to bed at about 10 since she's always tired.
Well, my mom makes us breakfast and dinner, so she's always kind of working on something like that. And she works for the scoring program for people's English. And my dad's at the computer from 10 in the morning to 8 at night. So he's constantly working.
Shanti, did you know that before people organized together in the struggle for workers' rights, people worked over 12 hours a day? They'd get up before the sun rose and didn't get home most days until the sun went down. And this was every day of the week, barely seeing their families. Kids weren't able to go to school because the pay was so low. Everybody in the house had to have a job to work so the family could have food and shelter and clothing. Can you imagine? What do you think about that?
So you're saying that there were also no age limits. Kids as young as 10 and 11 and 12 had to do the same work as the big people.
And they had to do it for less pay. During the Industrial Revolution, children were preferred workers because you could fit more of them in between the machines and factories, and they were less likely to form unions and demand fair pay or safe working conditions. There were even specific jobs that were designed only for children. Chimney sweeps, for example, because they could fit their tiny bodies down in between the chimney stacks. Weird, right? So it's good that our American labor ancestors were fighters. They spoke up and fought together to make working conditions, pay, and protections better for everybody. And now children are required by law to go to school to get an education instead of having to go to work. Most kids can't get a job until they're 16.
Thank you, kids and Jermaine, for helping me learn about Labor Day. I would tell our young people, help out around the house. Stop whining about it. It's what we do.
It's team. It's the team. Take
Bye,
care, Shanti.
Jermaine. See you
Bye-bye.
later.
We are Unitarian Universalists, called to build the beloved community where all souls, regardless of age, race, gender, ability, or income, are welcome into this family of faith, reconciled and renewed each morning to continue the work of healing this world. In recognition of the inherent worth and dignity of all, and for all who boldly continue the work of justice and equity for those, on this Labor Day weekend, we light candles. We hold a special place in our hearts this morning for our students and teachers who are returning or have returned to the classroom for another year of education. May they find the support and safety they deserve in place so they can confidently build their minds, bodies, and spirits during this drastically different school year. Let us remember our immigrant siblings who simply want better opportunities, a safe place to live, a decent job that pays adequately, and a chance for their families to thrive in their new country of residence. Let us also remember our siblings who struggle working multiple jobs to survive in an economy that undervalues their work. For these and those names spoken and unspoken, we light candles this morning. Chris Buja will now light our candle of witness in honor of a beloved loss in our collective struggle to dismantle white supremacy.
We honor and remember Kerry Michael Bouncem. His family described him as kind, generous, and loving. He was a son, a brother, and a father, loved by many. He adored his young daughter. He was his daughter's hero, and he meant everything to her. At the time of his death on February 16th of this year, he was 33 years old.
May I be filled with loving kindness
Spirit of life.
Still small voice within each and all.
God of abundant love.
Source of our being. We come together with songs of praise. We come together for a moment of silence and stillness. We come together in mournful lamentation.
Each from a different point on the map.
Each from an often fleeting season of life.
Each from our emerging identities.
Each from our ever-evolving beliefs.
Each one of us coming together to give voice to our struggles, our sorrows, our outrage.
The fear we experience with each new storm.
The loss of yet another person we love.
Holding broken promises and bruised feelings.
We lift up our voices so that with each breath, our bodies may know true healing.
We come together to call forth the power of creation alive within each of us and all around us.
Witnessed in the spark of a match.
In every droplet of cleansing water.
In the joining of hands and hearts.
We call forth our creative potential so that when we close our eyes, our minds may conceive new possibilities for our shared future.
And yes, we come together to rejoice with thanksgiving for those flashes of compassion, repair, and hope.
When we have the courage to face our fears.
When we uncover hidden strengths in our vulnerability.
When we glean wisdom from our hard-won experiences.
We center joy so that with open hearts, we may become rooted in our strength, our courage, and our wisdom.
Let our lone voices this day join together in this song of prayer so that we may witness our seemingly solitary struggles, our singular creations, our particular joys. May we witness them as one of many singers in this, the great chorus of life. Let the congregation say,
Amen.
Ashe.
Blessed be.
Everyone, my name is Eric Paul. I'm a member of Beacon. I'm also a labor organizer for a public sector union that represents faculty and professional staff at a university, at a public university. It's a public sector union. I want to talk a little bit about work, what is essential work, what is deemed essential, and how the nature of work has changed at this time. What I can say, my experience, our experience in the union, is that 2,800 people, part-time folks, have lost their jobs. Many of these folks relied on health insurance. So now we have folks who lost health insurance in the midst of a pandemic. We've also seen uncertainty and a lot of fear around reopening, right? There are reopening plans, but who is being deemed essential to return to work? Do people have folks at home, family at home that are high risk? So there's a lot of fear and uncertainty about who has to return. And then on top of that, there's also been massive budget cuts across the board, across offices, across departments. So while the institution, the university, may have reopening plans, what that looks like on the ground, can they afford PPE, for instance? Can the university afford hand sanitizer for folks? Will people themselves feel strong enough to say something about that, to fight back against that, to raise the issue? So there is, at this time, a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty. At the same time, we've also seen amazing leaders step forward, and we've also seen a massive increase in membership in our union and union actions. Over the summer, we've had what we called the Summer of Struggle, which were escalating actions, caravans, online actions, campaigns running into the fall to fight back against austerity. And what I can say about my experience, my inspiration, or my faith around this is that our members, that myself, that we think, that we believe, we hope that collective action that exists and that happens beyond our individual actions and beyond our individual thoughts can create, we hope, some kind of change. And that has been really inspiring to see that folks think and believe and hope that collective efforts can do something. And we don't know, but people still believe in that, and it's really, really amazing. No matter how our personal work changes and grows, our work together as a faith community stays rooted in our mission. In a minute, you'll be invited to support Beacon's mission through your generosity. Your contributions, big and small, make a big impact as we live into what it means to be a beloved community. Thank you.
The words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from his sermon, "Whatever your life's work is, do it well." If a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as a Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, "Here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well."
I want to tell you a story about an Irish Catholic woman in the 1960s. Her story begins, though truly, during the Depression. She is the daughter of 2 Irish immigrants, the youngest of 9 children, and with a sizable age difference between herself and her next sibling, it is decided, just as she is about to enter 6th grade, that she must drop out of school and stay home to take care of her parents. Her parents, who are ailing and sick from a lifetime of fighting alcoholism and poverty. She would tell stories of how those parents fought deep into the night when she was just a toddler, throwing chairs, and her memories of the sounds of things crashing as voices were raised. By the time she's 14, she gets her first job to provide for the family. Her mother has died, and she continues to take care of her father well into her late 20s. From this first job cleaning, she meets an engineer, a young man who has returned home from the war and who is full of possibility. He's in the midst of finishing his engineering degree at college, and she's drawn to this erudite, confident young man. Soon they marry. They move into his mother's house. He graduates with a degree, gets a good job, and their first child, a girl, is born. This child is followed by another girl, and things seem possible. And just as the youngest and last child, a baby boy, is out of diapers, the man loses his job. And after attempt after attempt, interview after interview, he's not able to get another one. A depression falls over him, and this confident man shrinks into himself, crushed by the generational expectations of a man in his time, one who was thought to first provide financially. Having 3 young children in the 60s, this woman with no further schooling than 6th grade goes to work. She finds first a job in a school cafeteria, a grammar school. And from there, she continues to go into jobs of cleaning in cafeterias, eventually working at a university cafeteria in order to secure one of her children a scholarship for that school. She recounts stories, memories of how the students treated her as if she was practically invisible, or worse yet, with taunting and meanness. One student, she recalls, coming in just after she had mopped a large dining hall from corner to corner, and on the last swipe, this young woman approaching, this young woman with a carton of milk in her hand, and Irene, this woman whose hands were worn from the hot, boiling water she drew to clean the floors. Stop, please, I just clean these floors. And the young woman laughing with her friends behind her. What's it worth to you? She asks as she slowly pours the milk. This woman, Irene, who, when her youngest graduated that school, left that school cafeteria for a foundry where she traded snickering students for rats as large as cats that appeared on the night shift that she worked day after day, which allowed her to watch her granddaughter during the daytime, working at night, rising the next day to do it all over again. Irene, this woman, was my grandmother. I am that granddaughter that she cared for. And I have never forgotten the value of my granny's life and the complex and pained stories of labor in our country. This is high season for political pander to the working. And suddenly in the pandemic, we have now, beloved, a new in vogue term of essential worker. The words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from his sermon, "Whatever your life's work is, do it well," keeps stirring within me as I hear each promise of workers and the admiration professed in front of the television for the salt of the earth folks, the supposed essential. As Dr. King said, If a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. So that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, will pause. As many of us have entered the great pandemic pause and work life demands fast forward and human rights rewind, new definitions of essential continue to emerge. Essential. Work in the United States has become even more so a social marker, a major identifier in almost every region of the U.S. You will hear people ask, what do you do, in some variation of the culture there? Who are you? You will be asked. For many of our jobs can include instant assessments, calculations of our worth or place, our backgrounds and our histories, and at times our very identities. I remember when my son was playing with another child a few years ago, and the other child's parent was beside me, and so she asked my son, what would you like to be when you grow up? And my son, with a full earnest reply, said, a garbage collector. She laughed and laughed and looked at me and said, don't worry, I wanted to be a cat when I was 4. And I thought of my granny. King's words of the street sweepers and the heavenly host cannot be separated from the context of the struggle for labor rights and the end to systemic racism. This was the close of his life, the Poor People's Campaign, an arc that began with the March on Washington for jobs and freedom. He was murdered while responding to a call for the strike of sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee. And we find ourselves all these decades later in a chasm even larger, a mounting depression and an economic system whose fragility is found in the abject truth of undervaluing of humanity and the ascription of worth, not even to work, but to the perceived ability to get what we need, to extract the essential. Only this invisible virus has suddenly made the medical worker, the technician, and the nurse so visible. And now the phrase working class, used as a marker in a political pandemonium to distinguish between the working poor and the poor, a racist baiting that implies the age-old tactics of this war on the poor, that some are just too lazy to work, that they can't be given any more relief because they need the toughness of an austere government that compels them to work. But we know the falsehood of this propaganda. We know the length and devastation of this homegrown war on the poor. We know the generations of debt and enslavement. We know the denial of basic human rights. And we know a faith that teaches inherent worth and dignity. Should not such a faith profess a guaranteed income? Should not such a faith profess the essential worth of all humanity? The pitcher cries for water to carry and a person for work that is real, writes the poet Marge Piercy. Easy words for privilege for the poet, the prophet, or priest to offer. But you, beloved, would be right to ask, and what are we to do now? We, the street sweeper, the factory cleaner, the business executive, the attorney, the teacher, the nurse, the fast food worker, the artist, the instructor, the garbage collector, what are we to say as retirements become impossibilities and days are filled with the movement of children in and out of every room, and the calculus becomes about the cost for childcare against the shift tips. What are we to do? Beloved, the pastoral is prophetic, and the personal has always been political. We are in a wave and a distancing that keeps tugging at us to surrender our humanity, to take the bait. And I say to us, let us refuse to surrender. To pause in the drive-thru, to dare across the mask, to look at one another, eye to eye. To expect gratitude and respect in a country that has fallen out of belonging. To refuse to become a caricature or a butt of jokes. To sweep the streets as Michelangelo painted, and what's more, lead with love for the labor of all of our beloveds. Not to hide, but to celebrate. Not to live in a personal shame or suffering, but to reclaim and perhaps to revolutionize. To demand an ethic of work that at last affirms the worth and dignity of every person. To learn the postal worker's name and expand essential. To learn the grocer's name and expand essential. To learn the delivery person's name and expand essential. To discover the history of your name, your lineage of labor, whether stolen or broken, or the source of your shame. And move to pause and honor the work and the worthiness. And never to laugh at the work, at the labor of the love incarnate of any human. To belong to the communion of community. My son may collect the trash, remove the debris of our lives to ensure safety and sanitation and health of our communities. And I will demand a community that recognizes the sacred of his work of sanitation workers and ends this war on the poor, just as Dr. King called for so many years ago. I will refuse to lay down my granny's memory for someone else's political gain or be swayed by caricatures that divide us. We cannot do everything, as Edward Everett Hale rightfully pointed out, but we can do something. And so let us not fail in doing the one thing we can do because we can't do everything. Let us not refuse to do the something we can, rising together to redeem the soul of this nation. To quote John Lewis, together we yet can. Together we can end this war. Together we can find one another and discover ourselves on this battlefield. Together we can honor the saints of this movement for labor, for human dignity, for racial justice. Together we at last can confess with our lives we are essential. Every last one. So, what's it worth to you? Our lives. Our children's lives. Our very freedom. Our collective liberation. Everything for which we were fashioned. Everything for which the cells of the freedom fighters fought and now live on in us. Every bit of stardust, every bit. worthy, essential, enough to end this war. So let us know the true peace from justice. So let us be revolutionized from within. What's it worth to you? It's worth everything.
Thank you, Robin. And as we come to our closing song, I also want to thank John O'Neill, week after week, providing incredible arrangements and inspiration, musicality, and joy. It is such a pleasure. So I hope that you will all join in singing the song, which is, May the Work I've Done Speak for Me. May the work I've done speak for me. May the work I've done speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down this heavy load, may the work I've done speak for me. Let the life I've lived speak for me. Let the life I've lived speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down this heavy load, let the life I've lived speak for me. Let the friends I've made speak for me. Let the friends I've made speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down this heavy load, let the friends I made speak for me. Let the love I've shared speak for me. Let the love I've shared speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down this heavy load, let the life I've lived speak for me. Let the friends I've made speak for me. Let the love I've shared speak for me. Yes, let the lives we live speak for us, because we're a beacon, and that means that the light we have is a signal to the world, a signal that we value workers, that we are fighting for racial equality, and that we believe in community, a community that will get more work done together than we could possibly do separately. And so as you go out into the world, we hope that you know you are beloved. You are part of the community. And together, we are Beacon.